So now we're going to solve literal equations. A literal equation is more of like a formula that we take and we solve for another variable. So for example, in this first one, 10x minus 2a equals 3a, and we want to solve this for x. That means we want to get the x term all by itself. Now we're going to follow the same rules. We're going to work to isolate that x. So that includes simplifying if there's parentheses. It includes moving the non-x terms to one side, the x terms to the other side, and then dividing to finally get the x by itself. And so in this example, what I would do is I would move the 2a over, so plus 2a. Okay, and that gives me 10x equals 5a. I can combine these because they are like terms. If they both did not have a, I wouldn't be able to combine them. Then I'm going to divide by, not 5, we're going to divide by 10. Write that correctly. We're going to divide by 10. And so x equals 5 over 10, which is 1/2. So this is going to become a over 2. So this is the new formula. Now, with literal equations, you don't get a number answer. It's not a set solution. It's going to be another formula. You've just manipulated it so that you've solved for another variable. Okay, so when you look at this number 12, you can see we're going to solve this for y. And so I'm trying to get the y by itself. So I'm going to move the x term over. And this time I can't combine like terms. They're not. 10 and 3x are not like terms. So the way we write this is 10 minus 3x. Then I'm going to divide by -5. Now there's a couple of different things we can do here, but typically what happens is we're going to divide that -5 by both of these terms. So 10 divided by -5 is -2. And then -3x divided by -5 is positive 3/5 x. So I could write it that way. Or if you're like me and I don't like negatives in front, I'm going to flip that around and write it that way. Okay, so that's two ways, you can write either one of these are correct. But the whole idea of solving a literal equation is you're going to choose a variable to solve for, then you're going to isolate that particular variable using all of your solving equations steps. So here we've got a couple of more. So we're going to solve this one for z. We're going to solve this for z. So z is here. What do I need to do to get that by itself? So a lot of times what I say is we're going to start from the outside going in here. So how do I remove the 3/2? Well, it's multiplied by 3/2. So we think, okay, so we divide by 3/2. But what does it mean to divide by 3/2? Well, if we're dividing fractions, dividing by 3/2 means I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal of that on both sides. To divide by a fraction means to multiply by the reciprocal. So this is going to be 2/3 a equals, this cancels out, z plus 1. Now I don't have to write it in parentheses anymore because I don't have a number outside. I don't have something to multiply by. Then to finish solving for z, I'm going to subtract 1. So this becomes 2/3 a minus 1 equals z. So there's my solved equation there. So another example here is going to be 3x plus 4a equals 2px plus 1. Solve for x. So this one's going to be a little more creative. We're going to make sure both of my x terms are on one side. So that means I'm going to move this to the left, which makes me want to move the 4a to the right. So that means I'm going to do minus 2px minus 2px. And then I'm going to minus 4a minus 4a. So what I get is 3x minus 2px equals 1 minus 4a. Now you're thinking, okay, but I can't combine those because they're not like terms. I can't do 3 minus 2p. But in reality, that's actually what I am going to do. Think about it like this. I'm going to factor out the common factor of x, and that's going to leave me with the coefficient of 3 minus 2p. Now, why in the world would I do that? Because what that means is x times, this means x times 3 minus 2p. So in order to solve, I'm going to divide by 3 minus 2p. So x equals 1 minus 4a over 3 minus 2p. So let's do one example of using linear equations to solve a problem. Adele's 2012 Mini Cooper gets 37 miles per gallon on the highway and 29 miles per gallon in the city. The amount of gas she uses, A, so this A stands for the amount of gas, is given by this equation, A equals 1/29th C plus 1/37th H, where C is the number of city miles driven and H is the number of highway miles driven. If Adele drove 58 miles in the city, that makes C 58, and used 5 gallons of gas, that means A is 5, how many highway miles did she drive? So what that means is A is 5, C is 58, and I'm going to need to solve for H. And I really feel like substituting and then solving is probably your best bet. So this one, let's simplify because I can simplify that. That's 5. 1/29th times 58 is actually 2, which makes this a much easier equation to solve because when I move the 2 over, I get 3 equals 1 over 37H. And then think about how you would solve that. I would multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply by 37. And 3 times 37 makes H equals to 111 highway miles. Let's go ahead and put highway up here. So it's 111 highway miles is how far she would drive.